Welcome to More Life, where you give yourself more life. I would like to make my perspective clear about the fact that I'm not coming from a religious standpoint, and I'm not here to teach religion or doctrine. And I understand the Bible more as a metaphysical and a psychological text. I'm aware of it being one of the greatest books ever written on the mind, on belief, and on consciousness. When I use scripture, I'm using it symbolically. I don't see it as literal, historical records or events. I see it as maps of states of consciousness and an inner guide to understanding how the inner world creates the outer world. As I quote these verses, understand how I'm approaching them. I'm approaching them as teachings about the power of the mind and awareness, not religion. With that understanding, let's talk about what scripture really means when it says in Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. But first we must know what the world is. What is the world? First, let's start with what people think the world is. That's very interesting. What people think the world is. Most people identify or read the world as planet Earth, a place separate from God and separate from heaven. They see it as a sinful environment, a battleground between God and the devil. They see it as a place full of sin, temptation, and evil influence. To them, the world is a harsh physical reality where you must struggle to survive, struggle to fit in, and accept whatever destiny is given to you. That's the common interpretation of what people think the world is. Now, let's take a deeper look at what the world actually represents. What does this world actually represent? When scripture speaks of the world, it is not speaking of planet Earth. The world is a system. It is a system of suggestion. It is the world of collective beliefs and ideas that are constantly impressed upon the human mind. The world in this sense is a conditioned mental environment formed through the news, family, and formed through friends, to name a few. Formed through repeated suggestions about what you could be, do, and have when it comes to health, when it comes to money, when it comes to survival, and a whole list of others that became accepted as truths. From childhood, these suggestions are absorbed and handed to the subconscious before we ever even developed the ability to question them. Over time, the world teaches you what to expect. It teaches you what to fear. It teaches you what to accept as normal. And then that begins shaping how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. Most people assume these installed beliefs are their own thoughts, but it's not. They are the thoughts of the world mind. The world mind installs the idea that possibilities decrease with time. And now that we have a better understanding about the world, what people think the world is, and what the world is, let's take a look at what conforming to the world means. Conforming is unconsciously or unknowingly bowing down to beliefs, fears, and limitations that are handed to you and accepted as truths without questioning. Conforming is a mental agreement. Conforming is a mental contract. That mental contract gives permission to outer conditions and visible reality to program your mind, dictating, controlling, and dominating your internal state or inner conditions. Because once an idea is accepted by the subconscious mind as truth, it begins to operate automatically, shaping how you see yourself and how you see life and what you believe is possible. Over time, these inherited beliefs and limitations become internalized until they feel like your own. Yeah, that's right. Internalization means an individual's acceptance of a set of norms and values established by others. And once they feel like your own, you begin living from them automatically without ever realizing you conform to them in the first place. Without ever realizing you conform to them in the first place. Now, naturally, you're wondering, so how do I stop conforming? Renewing the mind equals the solution. Being transformed by the renewing of your mind is the solution. So we must begin. What is renewing the mind? Renewing the mind begins when you become aware. You have to become aware of the beliefs you were handed. You have to become aware of the beliefs you were handed and you accept it over time. You must want to be different and intend to be before you can begin to change yourself. You cannot change unless you have new ideas. For we think from our ideas. Most of the thoughts you think and assumptions you hold about yourself, they were not consciously chosen. They were inherited. To renew the mind is to consciously, knowingly, and intentionally replace those subconscious beliefs with chosen beliefs about who you are, chosen beliefs about what you believe is possible for your life. It is learning to believe in yourself correctly and no longer accepting the limitations restricting you and confining you. Believing yourself correctly. That happens through mental rehearsal, by seeing yourself differently within and feeding the subconscious new images of what you can be, of what you can do, and what you can have. Change the image, and as a result, you change the facts. As the mind is renewed internally, your sense of self begins to change. And once your self changes, your experience begins to change with it. It's something on the inside that's working on the outside. Now, let's take a deeper look into our childhood subconscious openness, our childhood programming. As children, our subconscious minds were highly impressionable and unguarded, wide open. At that stage of life, we accepted almost everything is true. We had no real ability to reject ideas, question beliefs that were given to us. We trusted authority automatically, and because of that trust, many ideas were accepted without examination. Over time, the repetition of what we heard and experienced became impressed deeply within the subconscious mind. Those repeated suggestions formed our early self-concepts and became the foundation of our identity we began to live from. This is why scripture also says, keep thy heart, or guard thy heart, with all diligence, for out of it are the issues, or springs the issues of life. Because in this context, the heart symbolizes and represents the subconscious mind. And whatever is impressed deeply within it outpictures itself in the experiences of life. Let's now go over some examples of installed limitations. Before you ever had the power to choose your own beliefs, many beliefs were chosen for you. You may have grown up hearing things like, be realistic, or Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us don't do things like that. That's not for you. Don't dream too big. Some were even told, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father. As if your future was already decided. Others were taught to see themselves limited because of the color of their skin. Some see themselves limited because of where they came from. Some were taught to see themselves limited because of the environment they were born into. And many were conditioned. Many were conditioned to believe that success only happens for lucky people. They are conditioned to believe that there aren't any opportunities, supply is low, and force must be used in order to get in this world. And that life is just a struggle just to get by. Over time, repeated suggestions and ideas like these begin to shape how you yourself see yourself and what you believe is possible for your life. Matthew 9:29 states, according to your belief, it is done unto you. Which means when you believe something, it has been accepted as true. And without realizing it, these inherited beliefs become internalized, meaning they move from being an idea you hear and has now crossed over to something that you accept as true within yourself, running quietly in the background of your mind and shaping identity. Now that we have a better idea of that, let's look into the two worlds that exist. One of these worlds is the world of limitation. And this is the world that reaches us primarily through our five senses. In this world of what we see with our physical organs of vision, and what we hear and what we are told, and what appears to be happening around us, when a person lives by sight from what the senses report, they begin to accept appearances as absolute truths. And over time, the sensory world begins to shape belief, expectation, and identity. This is the limited world created by programming, handed down beliefs, and conditioned thinking. It is the world shaped by inherited ideas, conformity, and survival-based thinking, where many people live from past conditioning rather than conscious choice. In this world, poverty, lack, scarcity, it feels normal. Fear feels normal, and doubt feels natural and familiar. In the world of limitation, many are taught that opportunities decrease with time, that it's too late now, that they're too old, and that certain possibilities no longer belong to them. So they begin to accept the idea that life becomes smaller rather than greater as time goes on. Many in the limited world live expecting struggle, expecting lack, and often feeling controlled by outer circumstances, conditions, and people. It becomes a world of appearances, the physical world of effects. And because this limited world has been repeated and reinforced for so long, most people come to believe it is the only world that exists. But in reality, it is a conditioned state of mind shaped by past experiences, social norms, and beliefs. It feels real because it was repeated, but it was learned. But there is another world that exists, a world not reached through the five senses, but reached through awareness. This is the world of unlimited possibility. It is an inner world accessed through imagination, belief, and conscious thought. In this world, you are not limited by your past, not limited by your age, not limited by outer conditions or appearances. This is the world reached through your inner eye of vision, imagination, reached through your inner awareness, reached when a person becomes conscious of the power within themselves. And it is through the subconscious mind that this inner world of infinite possibilities begins to express itself outwardly. Because whatever is impressed upon the subconscious mind eventually shapes perception, behavior, and experience. This is the world that responds to belief. This is the world that responds to assumption and responds to the inner state you consistently live from. This is why Scripture speaks about the kingdom of heaven within you. Because the true creative power does not operate from the outside, it operates from within. Both worlds, unlimited possibility and the world of limits, both exist now. Both worlds, unlimited possibility and the world of limits, both exist now. Most people live in the world of limitation unconsciously and unknowingly, but you can live in the world of unlimited possibility, knowingly and consciously, because the inner world you impress upon the subconscious is what ultimately shapes your outer conditions, circumstances, events, and experience. This is why Scripture also reminds us in 1 John 4:4, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The world. Greater than the world mind. Greater than the beliefs you inherited. Greater than the limitations you were taught. Greater than the world of conditioning you were born into. Because the true creative power has never been outside of you or up in the sky. It has always existed within. And it is through the subconscious mind that the inner power begins to express itself outwardly. And whatever you consistently impressed on the subconscious, whatever state you consistently live from within, eventually shapes your outer experience. This is why renewing the mind changes experience. Because when you change the inner world, you begin to change what is expressed in the outer world. The true source and supply has always been within you. When you realize that the source is within you, you realize you don't have to bow down to limitation. You don't have to accept inherited beliefs as final truths. You can reject it and you can stand up in the awareness of unlimited possibilities. You can stop living from limitation and you can begin living from more life.